Hello everyone, my name is Hannah Richards, and today I'm going to be talking about narrative in games. Actually, before we get into that, let's go ahead and ask the simple question, what is a narrative? A narrative is a spoken or written account of connected events, or simply known as a story. Sure, we all know what a story is, but what does a story mean in a game? Think of it as a book or a movie that you can interact with. Now that we know what a narrative is, how can we define when a game has a narrative? Now, when you think of a narrative or a story, you probably think of some huge novel like Harry Potter or The Hunger Games. Ugh, don't even get me started on Lord of the Rings. Anyways, the point is that stories or narratives don't have to be super detailed or very long. They just have to portray events and have evidence to back up those events. Now, just because The Cat in the Hat doesn't have as many words as Moby freaking Dick doesn't make it any less of a narrative. The reason I bring this up is because people look at video games the exact same way. For example, let's take an iconic game that every generation knows about. And that game is Donkey Kong. This game had a simple objective of having to make your way up to the top platform to save the princess from the evil gorilla while avoiding barrels and enemies. Well, that right there is a narrative. It may be short and simple, but it's still telling a story, and the story is further told throughout the design of the levels. Now, let's take another huge game, Space Invaders. Now, in this game, you had the simple objective to shoot the aliens before they made it to the bottom of the screen, as well as dodging their attacks. That right there is also a narrative. The story is that the player has to defend the bottom of the screen by shooting the Space Invaders. I mean, it's literally in the name. If that information was not there, then the game might as well have been called Move, Shoot, Dodge. Yeah, doesn't really roll off the tongue. Now that we have discussed narratives in games, what defines that a game has a great narrative? Now, this is a tough question to answer because there technically is no right or wrong answer. This is because everyone has a different way of defining what does and doesn't make a good narrative. Even though there are multiple games in various genres with differing narratives, they still all have key parts to them that determine how great their narratives truly are. These three key parts are the plot, the character, and the lore. Each of these parts have their ups and downs, so some games may have awesome lore and characters, but the plot of the game is just plain old Jane. Oh, hi Jane. So what it really comes down to is which features attracts you more to a game. Now, let's go ahead and talk about interactivity in games. Well, that's a little redundant to say, because video games are basically TV shows that a person can interact with. So I guess a better question would be, what about making something interactive makes it better? Let's start with meaningful choices. When someone is allowed to make their own choice in a game, it makes them feel like they are actually a part of the game, making the experience way more enjoyable and memorable. Now, what makes it so special when narrative and interactivity are combined? Well, this is a core reason why video games are a part of the entertainment industry. It's because they can provide the same experience as movies and TV shows, but video games take it a step further by allowing the player to have a say in the narrative, bringing the game to a personal level with the player. Well, that's all I got. I hope this video taught you more about narrative within games. So the next time you play any game, yes, and I mean any game, I implore you to think about the narrative behind it, because whether it's as big as Halo or as little as Dig Dug, it will surely have opened your mind and made your gaming experience a little bit better.